I've spent over a decade working as an archaeologist, digging up relics, studying ancient civilizations, and piecing together the puzzles of the past. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what my team and I uncovered beneath the sands of Egypt last year. It's a discovery that haunts me, one that we were never supposed to find. You've heard the theories, I'm sure. The pyramids. How could a civilization thousands of years ago, with primitive tools, have built such monumental structures? People talk about aliens, advanced lost technology, but giants? Yeah, it sounds insane. Trust me, I would have laughed too before we found the bones. Let me take you back to how this all started. We were on a standard dig about a mile southwest of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Our goal was to explore an area that had been previously untouched, just a few miles out from the typical tourist paths. This wasn't the first time a team had tried to explore these dunes, but the desert is unforgiving, and past expeditions had given up after finding nothing but sand. Still, we were determined. On the second week, we hit something. A stone buried about 20 feet below the surface, unlike anything I'd seen before. At first, we thought it was just another small tomb or a forgotten storage chamber. But as we uncovered more, it became clear that this stone wasn't part of a tomb. It was part of a massive underground structure. The size of the blocks we uncovered, it didn't make sense. They were significantly larger than the ones used to build the pyramids. I mean, these stones were over 30 feet long and weighed hundreds of tons. It's impossible for human hands, or any technology we've documented from that era, to have moved them. We were excited, of course, but there was this lingering feeling of unease among the team. It was hard to describe. The air seemed thicker, the shadows deeper. Still, we pressed on. We had to. Then a week into the excavation, we found it. Beneath the stone blocks, our ground-penetrating radar revealed a cavern. It was sealed off, no visible entrance. But there was a hollow space beneath. And from the depth and size, it was unlike any burial chamber we'd ever seen. We worked through the night, desperate to break through, and on the following morning we did. When we lowered ourselves into that chamber, it was like stepping into another world. The air was ancient, stale, suffocating. Our lights flickered, struggling to penetrate the darkness. The walls were covered in inscriptions, but these weren't the hieroglyphs we'd come to expect in Egyptian tombs. No, these were different. The symbols were jagged, almost primal, and as we studied them, a chill ran down my spine. The deeper we went into the chamber, the more it felt like we weren't supposed to be there. There was an oppressive weight in the air, and an overwhelming sense that we had disturbed something that should have remained buried. Then we found the bones. They were enormous. The first skull we uncovered was twice the size of a human's. Its eye sockets were deep, cavernous, and the jaw, it was too large, too thick. The bones themselves, even in their deteriorated state, were unlike anything I'd seen before. They were long, thick, and covered in strange carvings, runes almost. These weren't simple decorative marks, though. They seemed deliberate, purposeful, like they were part of some forgotten ritual or language. The skeletons, they were giants. There's no other way to describe them. These beings had to have stood at least 15 to 20 feet tall, and there wasn't just one. The chamber was filled with them, rows upon rows of bones, some shattered, others perfectly preserved, lying in what appeared to be massive stone beds. But it wasn't just the bones. At the far end of the chamber, there was a door. Not a conventional door, mind you. It was a towering stone slab with a massive carved eye at its center, staring down at us. I'll never forget the feeling I had when I saw it. It was like the eye was watching us, judging us for being there. It wasn't a warning, but a promise. We shouldn't have gone through that door, but we did. Behind it was something I can barely put into words. The chamber beyond wasn't just a resting place for giants. It was a workshop. There were tools, massive, ancient, and designed for hands far larger than any human. The walls were lined with intricate carvings, showing these beings lifting enormous stones with ease, shaping them, constructing. Pyramids. There it was in front of our eyes, proof that the pyramids weren't built by the Egyptians alone. These giants were the architects, the builders. The Egyptians may have worshipped them, maybe even worked alongside them, but it was the giants who did the heavy lifting, literally. And then we found the heart of the chamber. At the center of the room, on a pedestal, was a massive stone tablet. The inscriptions on it were unlike anything I'd ever seen. They told a story, a terrifying story. It spoke of a race of giants who descended from the stars, who ruled over the land long before humans. They were worshipped as gods, and they shaped the world to their will. But something went wrong. The inscriptions described a war, one that devastated their race. It spoke of betrayal, of some of the giants turning against their own, driven mad by power and greed. The final image on the tablet was of the giants being buried beneath the earth, their remains entombed in darkness, cursed to never rise again. As we stood there taking in what we had uncovered, the air around us began to shift. It was subtle at first, a faint vibration in the ground, but then it grew. The floor beneath us trembled, and from the walls a low rumble echoed through the chamber. The lights flickered again, and suddenly the room grew colder. Much, much colder. One of the workers stumbled back, gasping. His flashlight pointed toward the door we had come through. But something was wrong. The doorway. It was changing. The stone slabs were moving, grinding together as if they were alive. And then we heard it. A sound I'll never forget. A low guttural growl reverberating through the chamber. It wasn't human. It wasn't like any animal I'd ever heard. It was deep, ancient, and filled with a rage that sent chills down my spine. We were not alone. Panic set in. We scrambled to get out, to climb back up the ropes and escape the chamber, but the ground was shaking too violently. One by one, the lights went out, plunging us into near darkness, save for the weak glow of our flashlights. Then we saw them. From the shadows, enormous figures began to emerge. Not fully formed, more like wraiths, their skeletal bodies barely visible. But their eyes, their glowing eyes pierced through the darkness. They towered over us, their forms distorted by the shadows. But they were there, moving toward us with slow, deliberate steps. We ran. The ground was shaking so violently that we could barely keep our footing. But somehow we made it to the ropes. As I climbed, I looked back one last time, and what I saw will haunt me for the rest of my life. The giants, those long-dead beings trapped beneath the earth for millennia, were waking up. We sealed the entrance as best we could. No one spoke for hours afterward. We couldn't. There was nothing to say. We had uncovered something ancient, something that had been hidden for a reason. The official report. We found nothing of significance. The dig was shut down, the site covered up, and the bones. They were quietly taken away, never to be seen again. But I know what we found. I've seen the truth with my own eyes. The giants were real. They built the pyramids, and they're not dead, not entirely. If you ever find yourself near Giza, wandering too far from the beaten path, don't dig. Don't go looking for answers. Some things are buried for a reason, and some giants should never be woken.